Each fall, the transition from summer vacation back into school is a tough adjustment for many kids. A different schedule, as well as unfamiliar faces, can be stressful for students and even parents navigating through the new year. And right now, this landscape is even more uncertain. Whether a school is doing online learning, in person, or a mix of both, each method comes with its own unique set of challenges. For some young learners enrolled in preschool, in-person learning means wearing a mask throughout the entire school day, temperature checks upon entry, and eating meals and snacks outside on the playground. These new policies can be difficult for kids to adapt to, but are necessary in order to keep kids safe and on track in their development.
For kids 3 and up, that's, I think, when there's an effect of that social distancing where they're not able to go into like a preschool setting and practice taking turns and practice talking with other kids their age. And I think for those kids, it's a little bit harder to sort of practice those age-appropriate skills.
That's Dr. Irene Koolwijk, a developmental behavioral pediatrician at the UCLA Medical Center. She says it's no secret that the pandemic has completely upended education and the many services families rely on. This leaves parents with the short end of the stick and has resulted in added stress and anxiety for millions of adults who are just trying to get through this time.
They're dealing with just so many stressors, financial stress, and then with schools reopening but online in the LA area. It's just challenging to combine work and making sure kids are able to access the online schooling.
Koolwijk says that this environment filled with tension can take a toll on a child's mental health.
What I worry about is for kids, I think they're at higher risk for developing sort of symptoms of anxiety or depression, and we're already seeing that happening here and there. Again, they're sort of in one closed environment, so if parents are really stressed, I think that might reflect on kids as well. They sense that, and so that could lead to increased anxiety.
So for children who are still at home much of the time, what are some tips that parents can keep in mind to provide emotional support?
The one important thing is, I think, for parents to watch their own stress levels, and that's easier said than done, but if they're able to maintain calmness and sort of project that calmness. And I think play and interaction is the most important part, and that, is such a big thing that can help kids. I think the other big thing to do is to maintain somewhat of a daily schedule. So to have meal times at regular times, have a regular bedtime, plan specific activities throughout the day, some maybe inside play, outside activities, some tabletop activities versus like some exercise, and have that daily schedule. And maybe even, it's very helpful for young kids to have sort of like a visual schedule, sort of in pictures, what is going to happen today.
In addition to setting a schedule, keeping separate spaces for learning and play can be helpful if you have the room for it.
If it's possible for a child to learn in the same place every day, have their set of supplies there, they can start to associate that with that's where I'm going today, I'm learning. That will provide a certain sense of predictability and calm that they need.
That's Lindsay Jones, president and CEO of the nonprofit organization, the National Center for Learning Disabilities. Jones says that another key learning tool for young kids that parents can do at home, even if it's just for 10 or 15 minutes at a time, is reading.
Early reading skills, early and fundamental things that are being built really at that age. That's a critical age, kindergarten, pre-kindergarten. We're really building language and literacy skills. And it's the time, I think, where most of students who parents are watching at that time, schools are thinking through how to build those foundational skills.
But for many working parents, the reality is that it's extremely challenging to juggle and enforce many of these routines. As of 2018, there were more than 41 million workers caring for a child under the age of 18, according to a report from the Brookings Institution. This pandemic has left these parents, many of whom were already stretched thin, in dire need of affordable childcare and flexibility from their employers. This, in turn, has reignited the debate around the lack of these resources in the U.S. And if a child needs extra help in the classroom, the situation is even worse. The National Center for Learning Disabilities reports that 1 in 5 Americans has some form of learning and attention issues. During the pandemic, a few of these services have shifted online, but children, especially those with undiagnosed disabilities, are still falling through the cracks.
For children already in the system and identified as needing that support, for the most part, school districts are providing in some form specialized instruction for the disability. For the kids who are not yet really enrolled in all-day K or kindergarten, that's a much bigger challenge.
Jones says that in a normal setting, teachers are trained to recognize learning issues in the classroom. But with many schools and childcare centers not in person this year, parents are left to figure it out alone.
It's a really critical time to pay attention to what kids, how they're displaying what they learn. So we've been trying to kind of work with parents to put out good materials to say, are you seeing, for children with disabilities, you can see certain patterns of demonstration of letter knowledge, number knowledge that might indicate a disability. And we want to create resources and make sure that parents have something that helps them understand, am I seeing this in my child? Are there resources to help? Is it something I need to take some next steps on, or is it a typical developmental process that's happening? I think it's just an incredible challenge for the parents who are at home seeing these patterns and becoming concerned. Finding a professional to work with their student is extremely challenging right now.
If you are uncertain as to whether your child may have a learning issue, you can take a free online survey at ncld.org/checklist to get more clarity and find next steps. And to all parents out there, reach out to your child's school and any education organizations in your community to see what materials and support they offer to help aid learning. To find out more about this topic, additional resources, and our guests, Dr. Irene Koolwijk and Lindsay Jones, visit viewpointsradio.org. This segment was written and produced by Amira Zaveri. Studio production by Jason Dickey. I'm Marty Peterson.
Coming up on Viewpoints.
We had some students make some really bad choices, including knowing they were positive, deciding to either go to parties or host parties. So this obviously caused a challenge.
Curbing the spread of COVID on college campuses. Then,
think of the application as a package. What's the story that you want to tell in the 5 to 10 minutes that admissions officers are looking at it? That's really what you're after.
Inside the competitive college admissions process, I'm Marty Peterson.
and I'm Gary Price. These stories in depth on your public affairs magazine, Viewpoints.